My name's Graham Dougal, and I'm with Lure. I'm the race officer for it. So there's a couple of important points. Recording this session because we're going to like to post it on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and look at it. Also, we'll be posting the slides on our website, so you can look at those later. So if you don't want to be included in the video, please disable your video and send us any questions that we'll answer at the end, out of band to racecommittee.loor.ca. One thing is we've got to thank our sponsors. Without them, it would cost more and we wouldn't have all the goodies that we have at the events. So please give them your patronage. And when you're doing so, just thank them for their support of Loor. So what's the purpose of this presentation? It's to understand how Loor uses PHRF LO and address some major problems that we see every year that come up and cause people to have to do some extra action. If they knew about them, they could have had it done in time, etc. And we'll go over some common questions, and we'll go over a new rating checklist that needs to be uploaded as part of the process in our race management portal, Nautical Cloud. Key points. This is a discussion about what's around the processes about how we use PHRF LO and PHRF LO certificates. Loor's only involvement is in using the information provided by PHRF LO. Loor is not involved in the setting or changing ratings. So this presentation or discussion is not about the mechanics of PHRF or PHRF LO, just how Loor makes use of it and how we can have some tips for people participating in Loor so they can make life easier for themselves. The other key point is Loor uses the PHRF LO point-to-point ratings. We'll focus a little bit on this later, which when we cover a certificate, to see that they're different than the normal ratings that you may use at your club or other weekend racing. Some key points. Any technical questions about PHRF need to be addressed to your club's PHRF handicapping team. This is a high-level presentation, so there may be many items that might be skipped over that are relevant. So again, reach out to your club handicapper or by email to Loor, and we'll try to help you. But this is not an in-depth discussion about PHRF. So next question, how many PHRFs are there? Anybody want to take a guess?
I'll say 20.
Okay. Actually, there's lots, and there are more than 20. So a PHRF area is a PHRF association organization that spans a geographic area, such as PHRF Lake Ontario, PHRF Northeast, PHRF Lake Erie, etc. Each is independent and has their own set of rules. That's important. So that the rating in one area may not be the same in another area. And there are different models of how they're governed. They can be controlled by their certificate holders. They could be controlled by yacht clubs or managed by a sailing organization. It's all over the map. So each area assigns their own handicap for their weather and water conditions. So the conditions on Lake Ontario are vastly different than Vancouver or Victoria, Southern California versus Northwest US. So that means the ratings can be different in the different areas. You may move your boat from one area to another and get your PHRF certificate for that area, but it could be different. This is just an example. It may be hard to read, so don't worry about the details. It's just that this is for a CNC 25 Mark I, and they vary from 120 to 142. Now, some of this has to be taken with a grain of salt. This is taken from U.S. Sailing that tries to coordinate but not govern PHRF, and it's not clear that the information is always the same, whether they're flying sales rating, non-flying sales rating, etc. But it just shows you the vast range for the same boat across these regions. and there's some close to 60 different perf areas across the world, mostly in North America. So that's why when you say, oh, my perf rating is such and such, we probably assume you mean Lake Ontario, but it may not be if you're from another area. So what's PHRF LO? It's an organization that's of the yacht clubs on Lake Ontario. It really has two different streams. It has a governance stream where you have the executive, and then you have the technical stream. Many the members of the technical stream, such as the chief handicapper for non-GTA, and the chief handicapper for the GTA, are on the governance stream as well to coordinate that. So the technical stream is where the measurement rules are set, etc. And there is a review of the ratings to make sure they're consistent, etc. There are I believe these are all the areas, districts, which are Rochester, Golden Horseshoe, Eastern Toronto East, and Toronto West. And within each district, there are the member clubs. So the member clubs of Toronto West are shown below, and the handicappers from those clubs meet and elect a district chief handicapper who then sits on central council to represent that particular district. And Larry, if I've got anything wrong, just pipe up and let me know.
No, you're doing great. Great, Graham. Great. Wonderful.
Okay, so now there's the perf rules. There's two parts. There's the handicap first manual part 1 procedures, and handicap manual part 2, the class rules. That's where all the things about measurement of sales and all the rest of it go into it. Because under the definitions of a rule under the racing rules of sailing, the class rules for a boat racing under a handicap or rating system, the rules of that system are class rules. So these are rules that you have to follow, or you could be protested in an event. So that's where the perf rules or handicappers manual part 2 fits into the racing rules of sailing. Now, is there anything worse than the racing rules of sailing? Yeah, the equipment rules of sailing. How many people have heard of this document? Okay, it's a companion document issued by World Sailing on the same schedule, and it basically sets out the definitions, etc., for the common elements of sailing. To rank as a rule, the equipment rules of sailing have to be invoked in the class rules. It was until 2024, there was a Sail Canada prescription that mandated it for all classes unless they said no. That's dropped, so now each class has to invoke the racing rules of sailing if they so desire, and PHRF LO does reference the equipment rules of sailing. One of the important concepts in PHRF, and I don't worry about reading it all, I just put it up there so it's there as reference material, is the concept of a standard boat. Either a class production boat or a custom one in top condition with good equipment. That's a key point. And it has a standard sail inventory, 155% Genoa and 180% flying sail, plus a flying sail attachment point or a class-defined sprit. So this is what is rated is a standard boat. And there's a whole bunch of other things that go into it about how the standard propulsion, standard equipment, etc., etc. Again, we're not dealing with the mechanics. It's just the concept of a standard boat that's important. So what happens is PHRF Lake Ontario takes that standard boat in that specific configuration and develops the ratings for them. They're the speed potential. Here's an example of the speed potential for a J24 that comes off the website. If you're a handicapper, you'll see the actual ratings or the actual SPs. for the standard boat. So if you boat exactly met the configuration, your ASP, which would be meet the SP. But people's boats aren't all standard. They have smaller sail plans, larger sail plans, different types of propulsion, etc., etc. So what happens is there are defined adjustments that are then calculated for those specific measurements to calculate the adjusted SP for that boat in the configuration that goes on its certificate. We'll get to that in a little later. So this is the standard boat. But what's key, and we run into this in the LO 300, and that's why we're raising it now, is the standard boat has to be defined in PHRF LO's database. So it has the PHRF LO SP already determined. If it's not, if it's a new boat that comes to Lake Ontario, or if it's a custom boat or a substantial modification, it may have to go through the initial assignment process. And that is to develop the speed potential for that standard boat. It takes considerable time. It's generated at the PHRF LO district level where that new boat is. All PHRF LO districts have a chance to comment, and then the Central Council has a chance to comment. So that several meetings. So that's not a short period of time. We have to gather all the statistics. So it takes a while. The other thing to understand is that there's a concept of protect the fleet. So the question arises, what if the wise men make a mistake in assigning the SP? They could make it so it's favorable to the boat, and that means everybody else is disadvantaged, or they could do something not to disadvantage everybody else and apply a adjustment to the SP until race results are known that protects the fleet. So you have a choice of protecting the fleet or maybe making a mistake and prejudicing everybody else. So the practice is to protect the fleet. So once the SP has been developed, then it's a matter of using the standard adjustments to develop the ASP for a specific boat. But again, it has to be in the database. And this may take times, months or more. And this is one of the things that we come in the Lake Ontario 300 or the Susan Hood, which is early in the year. Somebody shows up like 3 weeks before the event and says, oh, I need a perf rating. What's a new boat to Lake Ontario? Can you go through the process of all those meetings and all those reviews and get me a perf rating? No, it takes longer than that because we have to do it in a fair and transparent process so that we're not prejudicing the majority of certificate holders. So that's why if you know somebody that has a new boat or you get a new boat, please encourage them to get in touch with their club PHRF LO handicapper to start the process going. Larry, any comments on that? But you got to be either on the receiving ends of all those requests sooner or later.
Yeah, so my best example is Sean Dinsmore, who was the district chief for Golden Horseshoe and is now the chair of Central Council. When he goes through the exercise of doing an initial assignment, it looks at all sorts of speed predictors and measurement rules like ORR, IRC, and a number of other factors. And then there's comparable tables. So I know that when Sean does one, because he's done, I know of a few that he's done, he's got somewhere between 8 and 16 hours of his own time crunching the numbers before he comes up with a number based on all the sources of information that he feels comfortable sharing, and then everybody gets their input to compare to it. So Graham is not underestimating the amount of energy and the goodwill that's provided by the club handicappers in doing this, providing that information. They're doing it on behalf of the owner, right? We're not, we're responding to an application as opposed to a actual, we're not assigning it to somebody, we're responding to an application.
Yep. So I forgot to introduce Larry is Vice President of PERF LO. He is also past president, so he's familiar with all these processes. But again, that's one of the things that we always run into is because of the type of boats participating in offshore racing, they're often new to Lake Ontario, and people don't realize how long it takes to get the initial assignment. The other question we get that comes up is my PERF certificate hours valid? No. PERF LO needs money to operate, and they come from the annual fee for a certificate. Each club has a renewal process, and how they recover the money from the certificate holders is different. But a certificate is not valid, and it'll show up in the database, and we'll show that in a moment, until the renewal has been paid. And that's important because about a third of the entries in the Susan Hood, when we go and check their perf ratings, we discover that their certificate has not been renewed. Have to tell them to go get it renewed, so it just adds time, and they're surprised about it. So it's really the responsibility of the certificate holder to make sure that his certificate is renewed each year. And if you go,
Graham, the fee for this year's certificate is not changing from last year or the previous year. We're holding it at the same number.
Yeah. And what your fee is depends on whether your club submitted race results or not. Because there's a fee and then there's a credit if the race per certificate if the race results are submitted. So if you go and look at your certificate and you see it's invalid until renewed, then you need to reach out to your club handicapper to follow the process at your club to get it renewed. The other thing that comes up is people will send us their last year's certificate, assuming it doesn't change. It can change without you changing your boat. PERF LO collects race results and then uses that to calculate what the performance should be against the results. So that means over time, sometimes the ratings have to change based on performance. So again, what your rating last year was may not be what it is this year. Here's the example of a report, and down here, it shows you that the Central Council has to review it. I don't know what their decision was, but the CNC 25 Mark 1 outboard, the performance that was indicated by the race results was not consistent with what their rating should be. So that was reviewed. So again, as a certificate holder, you should check sometime in the beginning of May to find out whether your certificate was renewed, or if you happen to have a boat that had its SP adjusted because of the input from the race results. The other key thing is it's not the responsibility of the perf handicappers to do the measure of the sales. This is an owner system. That's why people are called handicappers, not measurers. Of course, they'll help everybody, but what's really great is if you get a sailmaker certificate, and they'll gladly do that if you're buying a new sail or taking it in to have it serviced, etc. Or if you want it just the measurements done, they may charge you a small fee. But there is a standard form that collects all the measurements that can be used for any of the handicapped or rating systems. So it's a really smart move if you're getting a new sail or getting it serviced, get a sailmaker certificate. Okay, here's just a moment, see if this works. Okay, so I've gone to the PERF website. Okay. I'll just type this in for now. So here's how you can, and you get your certificate. And notice here it says invalid until renewed. So you can check, and I wouldn't expect them to be done till May because sometime because first of all, Central Council has to have met. I believe they've already met to do the reviews. Then the clubs have to send in their money to get their certificate renewed. And once that's done, then the office administrative staff sets that it's been renewed. So it takes a while, but I would encourage everybody to check their certificate around the beginning of May. And there it is. Uh, and you can get a copy of it, etc. So that means it's available. It's publicly available. So somebody else can check your certificate. And if they suspect that you're not racing according to your certificate, they can actually protest you. So there is the URL, but that's what some way that you can check your certificate and that of anybody else. Here's an example of looking at a certificate. Up there is the certificate number, and you can't tell whether or not this is the latest one or not. That was the date it was issued. You'd have to go to their website to find out if there's a superseding one because something happened, such as this boat went through and got a new sail, so it got a new rating. So the fact that's only the date that was issued doesn't mean it's necessarily the most current one. 2 is the information about the certificate holder. 3 is the information about the boat. 4, it says normally it would say FS. This happened to be a sample certificate for a one design class. But if let's say it wasn't, and you didn't have the one design rating, that column would be flying sail. Number 5, this is going to where we mentioned before. Lake Ontario Offshore Racing uses the point-to-point TFC, and that's the time correction factor. So there are those digit numbers, and we'll need those a little later when we show you how to upload your information to the race management system that LOOR uses. Okay. And the other thing that I bet you most people, how many people have got a signed copy of the certificate on your boat when you race? Good. Because that's one of the rules that somebody could catch you out on.
Graham, can I offer one little bit of information here that people might find helpful?
Sure.
A boat, so I have a Laser 28. I can't have multiple certificates for my boat that I would use for LOOR racing versus what I would use for my club racing. So if I know that I'm going to race double-handed and I don't want to drag the Jeanneau around because I won't need it because I just use the smaller head sail, I can't have 2 certificates for the boat. But what you do get in this certificate available is there are actually 6 certificates available to you. So there's the point-to-point flying sails, point-to-point no flying sails, the flying sails for windward leeward, and the no flying sails for windward leeward. And then there's the alternate scoring method and the primary scoring method. So it creates some variables, and the race officers or the organizing authorities will determine which of those they're using. As Graham's identified, you're using the point-to-point in either the flying sails or the no flying sails.
Yeah. And we can have a whole discussion about why those are used and when they should be used. But that's a separate thing under the mechanics of PHRF. Some other questions that arise. we often get that we have boats for marinas, so they like to race. So, or they're a member of a club that's not a member of PHRF LO. PHRF LO will issue certificates to individuals that are not members of a member club. So if that's your situation, you can reach out to PHRF LO directly. However, having a certificate does not meet the requirements under the racing rules of sailing. Rule 75 or the Sail Canada prescription. If you have any issues with that, reach out to us because there's ways of accommodating that by joining the Maple Leaf Fund from Ontario Sailing, and we'll help you with that. So if you're in a situation where you're at a marina, you can still race in lure events and have a valid PHRF LO certificate. The other thing that comes up, because we do get boats from other areas, is that they have, like a boat comes from Lake Erie. They'll have a certificate that has a rating for Lake Erie. It may not be the one that would be appropriate to that boat when it's on Lake Ontario. So there is a process that PHRF LO will convert that certificate to one that and provide a rating for that boat on Lake Ontario. So again, you need to, if that's your situation, you need to reach out to PHRF Lake Ontario to work with that. So now we kept telling you that you needed to find your PHRF handicapper. So here's another handy thing. It's public. So if I go to, let's say,
you can use CBYC, you'll find me.
okay. Okay, so there, Terry is the handicapper for CBYC. So you can always find out your club's handicapper if you don't already know from this little page on the PHRF website. Okay, now this year we used a race management system called Nautical Cloud, and this year we're entering in requirement to upload your certificate and information. The major reason we're doing that is force people to go look at their certificate and figure out whether it's valid and what the ratings are. Just don't assume that it's correct. So basically, you go in Nautical Cloud. Once you've registered and added your boat, you go into Manage My Boats, click on Manage. Then you click on Checklists. Then you enter the lure rating handicap system data, and you click on Start Checklist. And this is what will happen. You click off what rating or handicap system you're using. You enter the certificate number. Then you enter in the point-to-point time correction factors for flying sails and no flying sails. And then you upload the document. And you hit submit, and away you go. However, we will be checking your certificate to make sure it's the correct one and the right rating information has been entered. So here are some tips for people. Always obtain a sailmaker certificate when buying a new sail or getting maintenance or repair of a sail done. They shrink over time, so what the size was 5 years ago may not be the size now. So you might actually get a credit if it's a smaller sail. If it's an initial assignment, it's never too early to start because it always takes longer than expected. And the certificate's annual responsibility around the beginning of May or the first race under PHRF LO, check that your certificate on phrflo.org is renewed, whether PHRF has changed your rating, and that you have a signed copy of the latest PHRF certificate valid for racing on your boat for that season. If you have these little tips, will save about 20 or to 30% of the registration problems we have every year with boats registering for lure events. Well, okay. Where to learn more about perf? We've only covered it at a high level. There's a great deal of information at your perf website. The other thing is you learn a lot by becoming a handicapper. There is this a limit of 3, but that's really an IT limitation, not really what perf would do. So if you're interested, and reach out to your current club handicapping team and see if they'll take an addition, because that's the best way to learn about all this stuff.
Graham, if I could,
Yeah.
in the past, there's been training put on by PHRF LO for new handicappers or people who want refreshers. Recently, there was one held in Bronte a couple of years ago. We didn't hold one this year because for a couple of different reasons, but we're trying to rewrite the training module and taking advantage of a lot of the great information that's here and some of the other stuff and structuring it in a way that works. But if there is anybody who's interested in being a handicapper, or you reach out to PERF or reach out to me, and I'm prepared to come out to clubs and do one-off training to help people, provided it's, I'm not using up every weekend of the spring. But if there's people that want information, we're interested in helping you do that, and we want to train you up. So we'll make that available to people. I know there's a few people that are interested in it, and we'd certainly like to make sure we're all working from a common knowledge base. But the manual is available on the website, and you can read through it as well.
And there are a lot of videos to have on YouTube about how to measure sales, etc. So there are a lot of resources out there. Now, for a shameless plug for Lure, we're always looking for volunteers. The safety committee, we have the event-specific sponsorship, etc., etc. So if anybody's, I know James is an ambassador, and so is Jeffrey. So thank you very much. But we're always looking for volunteers. So if you're interested, you can just see that webpage or email volunteer@lure.ca for more information. Thanks for attending. We'll have a chance for some questions following up. We're going to do another webinar, the last one of the season, to go over the courses and to let everybody know about the 300-kilometer course for the Lake Ontario 300, because many people only assume there's a 300 nautical mile. And if you have any questions or inquiries or would like to sponsor, just send us an email at lure.ca. So any questions or comment, feedback, what you'd like to know? Yeah.
So I assume when you meant me. This is first question is for Larry. Larry, thank you for offering to come out and sort of give personalized training, if you will. Are you okay if we invite a few neighboring clubs that are in our area and you do a slightly larger group? Does that work for you, or would you prefer to keep them small?
Yeah. I mean, we would work probably from a similar model of previous curriculum. And the idea would be using that as an experience to go, okay, what are we missing on? And how can we make sure that it's fulsome for everybody? So lhyber60@gmail.com. And rather than the perf vice president one, I don't normally check. It gets lost in space. So
Okay.
First initial name 60@gmail.com.
All right. I didn't get a chance to take that down. But you know what? When it comes time, I'll just try to remember that it's not the lure, or sorry, the perf email to get you at, and I'm sure I can track you down.
Yeah.
The second question I have is more procedural. Excuse me. If I'm racing one of the lure races, let's say, and I suspect that somebody is racing outside of what their perf certificate says. So let's say they've got some outrageously large spinnaker, and I'm going, they're not normally racing with that spinnaker. Do I protest the lure committee, or do I go to perf, or does I go to lure and then they go to perf? How does that all work?
Okay, what you should do is you have to follow the process for protesting a boat, saying that they're violating their certificate. Okay, then that goes to the protest hearing, and they will then invoke PHRF LO to find out whether that's valid or not, because they're the technical experts under the class rules. So that's how it's handled. You're actually protesting. You're protesting the boat.
Okay, so if it's the LO 300, I use the protest form for the LO 300.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, and then we'll, as the lure, will light up perf and get a information from them. Okay, very good.
Yeah. So now the other thing let's think that you believe you were unfairly rated, or somebody was given a benefit that they shouldn't, then you can appeal the rating through PHRF LO. That's different than protest. The protest means that you're violating the conditions on your certificate. The other one is saying that my certificate is wrong or their certificate is wrong. So there's two different processes. And in the handicaptors manual, it talks about how to do the appeal process. And there is a limit on the number of pages that you can have on your appeal, because there was one many years ago that went to several hundred.
Really?
So, yes. So that's the two distinctions about appeal versus a protest. Now, if the race committee or the technical committee can also protest a boat if it believes it's violating the certificate. But if you believe it is, if you're a racer and you believe some other boat is, then it's your duty to protest the boat. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No, that's good for me.
Okay. As I mentioned, they give us a couple of days to get the recording up on the LOOR website, and the presentation will be posted at the presentation will be posted at the LOOR website under presentations, and the video will be on the LOOR YouTube channel in a couple of days. So you can go back for references. And if you have any questions, comments, or whatever, just send them to registrar@loor.ca and we'll address them. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. Unless there's any other comments or questions we can answer right now. And as a final note, just like to thank our sponsors again.
Graham, just Jeff here.
Yeah.
Just thank you. This is excellent. Thank you very much. Pity there aren't more people here. I want to encourage Laura, if somebody starts sending questions about PHRF, just send them the URL for where this presentation will be housed, and say, look at that first. Because there's a lot, you've given a lot of information, and you shouldn't have to repeat it over and over again.
Yep.
So you can, I mean, there may be specific questions that need an individual answer, but I think a lot of them will be answered if the person looks at this, the recording of this video.
Yeah, that's our practice. That's part of the reason, is to build up a repertoire of webinars that deal with specific questions that we can point the people to, rather than trying to give lengthy answers each time. So thanks, a great comment. Yeah.